I thought that this was something that was idiosyncratic to the United States of America. Okay. I'm on a boat in Ibiza. That is a very privileged sentence, and I'm very proud to say it. I'm on a boat in Ibiza, and I'm talking to the captain of the boat, right? And there's a captain, like a first, like a helper or something like that. And I was like, so what's going on in Spain? Like, tell me, like, what's happening? You know, I saw there's some protests in Barcelona. And he gets comfortable enough. At first, he's kind of like nervous to share. And then he gets kind of comfortable. And he's like, honestly, yeah, it's like, you know, the immigration and like the you know, the left wing government is just kind of letting all these Moroccans in. You know, at the front of the boat is one of my best friends who's Moroccan. He's just enjoying his life. And I'm like, yeah, he's one of them. And he's like, he stops the boat, falls off. No, but he's like, yeah, these Moroccans are coming in. They let them come in because when they're naturalized, they can vote, and it bolsters the support of the left wing side. And he's essentially like echoing the talking points that you hear so many Americans talking about. So have you heard about this phenomenon? Like, why do we think there seems to be this huge frustration in not just America, I guess you're feeling it in Europe, and you could say a blame of the immigrants that are coming in and a reluctance for maybe the government to place that blame, but the people seem to feel it. Can you speak on this? If we were to make the argument for it, what would it be? What would be the argument against it? Like, can we just speak on it intellectually, not like what we personally feel?
Yeah. So
what is that sentiment?
Right. So first of all, you're 100% right. Right-wing populism is happening all over the Western world, right? And it's important, again, to notice it's happening in places that like don't have huge amounts of inequality, like Northern Europe. Sweden is like one of the more egalitarian places in the world. They've got a very strong right-wing populist party. The Dutch, you know, have a big welfare state. They've got right-wing populism. France coddles its workers more than anyone else. Like, I can tell you, when I was at Newsweek, I tried to get rid of one person in our Paris office. Basically, I had to shut down the whole office. It was crazy. And they have right-wing pop. They have a very strong party. In fact, it's the most likely to win right now if the elections were held. So, and all of them, the rocket fuel is immigration. So, I think it's two things. One, we let too many people in too fast over the last several years. The U.S. in 1975 was 5% foreign-born. We're now 15% foreign-born. Sweden in 1975 was probably 2% foreign-born. It's now 22% foreign-born. So it's like, and that's not even a country with a strong tradition of immigration, right? So these places just let too many people in. There's only so much you can assimilate. There's only so much you can accept.
You are historically very pro-immigration.
I am totally pro-immigration, and I think that it is the distinctive thing that makes America tick. Is like these people coming in who are, you know, hardworking, driven. I don't even think it matters that they're the world's smartest. I think, you know, having somebody who's willing to try to cross the Rio Grande 3 times to come and wash your dishes and look after your kids, that person has drive and determination. But there is a reality. Numbers matter. Like, you know, how many people can a society digest? So I think you know, and the left got that wrong.
This is the nuance lost in the conversation, I think.
Yeah.
Immigration is good.
Yeah, but numbers matter.
At too high a number.
And the speed matters.
Yes.
And the second piece of it is, I think immigration also becomes a kind of symbol for all these changes that we're talking about, right? Because how do you visualize fast movement of capital around the world, fast movement of goods? How do you visualize the computer software program that got rid of a whole bunch of jobs? These are all abstractions. But the guy who moved into that town and he speaks a different language and he worships different gods and he looks different, that's a very traditional human reaction to say, you know, that's change, and that's change. So some of it is the immigrant becomes the stand-in for all these changes that are happening to your world, and you don't know how to put a you know, your finger on them. But boy, you can look at that guy and say, that's the problem.
But what's interesting is they're not necessarily wrong to. They're not really necessarily wrong to say that there is a fundamental change. Maybe they're getting too much of the credit for the change because it's the easiest thing to put your finger on. I love that. But this idea that a country could go from 2% to 22% foreign born, like that's going to cause some friction. There are going to be some changes there. And then what we do is we gaslight those people and go, you're just racist and you're biggest. Some of them might be racist, but there might be others who are just like, hey, this feels different and we're not adjusting to this. And especially in Europe where they're like 1,000-year-old cultures. In America, at least in New York, like
everybody came from somewhere.
All of our parents are immigrants, right?
Yeah.
And like,
everybody came from somewhere.
everybody kept talking about like the immigrants in New York. I'm gonna be completely honest. Maybe it's the neighborhood I'm in, whatever. Like, I didn't even notice what they like. Everybody looks kind of like they just got here.
But by the way, that's true in general. The places that are most worried about immigrants, like Montana, they don't have a lot of immigrants.
Yeah.
The places that have the immigrants are like, we're cool. We're
just
fine
used to
with
it. And so to your
But
earlier
the
point,
speed and the
And you know
amount
that
is
they're just
interesting.
like normal people. They're trying their best. They're not, threatening to destroy America.
I also think to your earlier point, it doesn't feel jarring to us. Like it doesn't feel like our world is changing because you're in New York. You've always been used to seeing immigrants.
Right.
So it doesn't feel like it's changing when there's more. You don't even notice.
Right.
It's
And
just
you're
more
used to change.
of what
New York is a rapidly changing.
Yeah.
Your point about Europe is so good. Like, what we like about Europe when we visit, right? You go
That
to
shit
this,
is French.
Yeah,
It's Italian.
yeah.
Like we're going there for that experience.
So you go into the village and it looks like everybody's been the same. Baker looks the same, and it looks like his grandfather was the baker.
Yeah.
But imagine the new guy from Morocco. Where is he going to fit in, right? Like you wouldn't worry about that for a minute in America, and that's why I think we shouldn't give up, the not just immigration, but the pride we have in it, because we do it really well. We assimilate people really well in this country. Look, as you said, we're all in some way connected, but I am an immigrant. I grew up in India.
We got that Islam out of you immediately.
I can tell you.
Convert him!
Yeah, I can tell you, this country there's no question. It is more welcoming. It allows people to find their own place in it. When I came, Ronald Reagan was president, and he had a line which I loved. He said, "In America, we don't care about your origins, we care about your destination."
Fire.
And that's a great line.
Love it.
And that is the way we should think about it.
So what is the rate, do you think? Like, and it's impossible to judge right now, but if we think that there was a time where it's too few, a time where it is too much, where do we assess what is the right amount for assimilation to not have like that jarring kind of culture shock, and for the average American or Western person in a Western country to not place that blame, because we know that will be the impulse.
Right.
Like we're aware of how humans act, and we have to we can't tell humans not to be human. Right? Because we'll fail every single time at that. So how do we figure out what that rate for immigration is that makes the people coming in feel welcomed, which is what you want, and gives them an opportunity to assimilate? Like if you're coming into a place that's 22%, right? We go to Sweden, and I imagine as any immigrant, you would go to a place where there's a lot of your people. You have no need to assimilate because you're within that community. You're probably speaking that language. And then there's this chasm that begins to grow. So what do we think the rate is?
So the United States takes in about 1 million legal immigrants a year. We've done that for many, many years. It's never really caused a problem. 350 million people in this country, 1 million. It actually helps us enormously demographically, because the truth is, in America, we have a demographic problem. And if you look at the white fertility rate, it's actually much lower. It's at European levels.
Yeah.
So basically, the two things keeping America going demographically are
Latinos.
immigration and immigrants, not just Latinos. Immigrants have more kids. Hey. Two is replacement, right? Two parents having two kids. It's if you have more than two that you're actually helping. I will point out, I am an Asian American immigrant. I have 3 kids.
Oh, there you go.
Boosting the average.
Get them out! Get them out! Yeah.
So the problem became the breakdown of the asylum system. Basically, people who are poor and dispossessed in places like Latin America and Central Americans, they may be poor, they're not stupid. They realized that there was a loophole in the system. Yeah. If you came to try to cross the Rio Grande and you were trying to do it, without any cause, you got hunted down and thrown out. But if you came and said, I am seeking asylum because I have a credible fear of political persecution, you got a lawyer, you got 2 court hearings, you got to stay in the country. And so guess what? The number of asylum seekers, which used to be in the thousands, is now in the millions, right? And so obviously the system is being gamed, and nobody wanted to say this. I've been saying this for a while, and you catch hell for saying it, but obviously these people are gaming the system. Right. And nobody wanted to point this out. And I think the answer is we got to just scrap the asylum system we have and come up with a new one. Yeah. We've got to either put limits on it, or we've got to have very stringent requirements, or we've got to have requirements that you can only apply from your home country. Because, look, we live in an age of technology now. You don't need to show up at the border, right? You can apply by, if you have a smartphone, you could apply. So we've got to completely reconceive that. That is what broke down. If Joe Biden had just not done one thing, which was to have reversed all of those Trump bans, I think the Democrats, I don't know whether would have had a chance to win, because he did open up the gates and he did let in millions.
And they need to be accountable for that.